Welcome, Wargamers. Join your hosts, Balko and Monty, two Canadian wargaming enthusiasts, as we explore all aspects of tabletop wargaming. We roll dice, talk tactics, share hobby hacks, and explore new tabletop systems, all on the Trident Wargaming podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Trident Wargaming. I'm your host, Andy, and with me today I have one of our community leaders in the Battletech universe here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We have Mr. Stephen Barton here. How's it going?
Hey Andy, it's going pretty well, thanks.
Good. Today, obviously, it's all about Battletech. So we're pretty much going to be talking about communities, a little history on Stephen here himself, on, how he got into Battletech and what he does for Battletech and throughout the communities and community building and whatnot, and then also some other stuff that he's got in the works. So, so usually right off the bat, what we end up starting with is a little bit of hobby time. So, what do you got going on?
What do I got going on for hobby time?
Yeah. Anything
All
on
right.
the Battletech projects or?
Yeah, I actually have I don't even know how to describe it, a degenerative disorder or something like that with my palms. So I can't actually I don't have any grip strength. So
Okay.
painting for me is absolutely hellaciously difficult. But I've got my painter is 2 years behind on Battletech. He's got about 45 vehicles, 100 and some mechs, and 120 battle armor right now, in addition to the other stuff he's working on. That's what I got for painting to go right now. And I'm actually at a break for pretty much everything else. Just running just kind of reloading for 2022, just getting all my projects set up for campaigns and everything like that right now. Just brainstorming.
Nice. Yeah, that can take some time to do. Definitely, like, if you're doing tournaments or events or campaigns or however it goes, right? So I know I've done that too in the past, and it's a little bit of work to say, a lack of words. But in the end, it's quite pleasing to see players enjoying what you put out and stuff, right? So
yeah, it's one of the best feelings in the hobby, and I know for myself, for the majority of my campaigns, I always try and look at it as I have to have an idea that's so good it needs a campaign, not just like, let's do this, right? Mm-hmm. So because I want it to be memorable, and I try and get them to run for 1 to 3 years, kind of, I find is the sweet spot. So
oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's I guess Battletech's a little different for for campaigns and whatnot, compared to maybe some other games. I know I found myself with Bolt Action, like I'm trying to work up a campaign for the local group here as well.
Okay.
But it's kind of it's I need time, right? Like I can't just throw it together, and I know it's going to be a long session, and I just want to make sure guys are going to be good with it. So so Battletech, if you want, jump into some detail for that, and or even first, tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you got into Battletech, what you do in the Battletech universe, and what you've done, and just your experience, actually.
Sure. Yeah. So I started playing Battletech. It'll be 7 years this October. Like for regular play, I bought the starter set at the time, the old 22, I think it was about 22 plastic minis that were, they were decent quality. Some of them weren't so great. I bought that at Century Box actually in 2015.
Okay.
I was down there. I would go out I was still in school at the time. And I'd go out every fall break, or sorry, every winter break. I'd go out there to Canmore for a few days with my brother and my dad, and we were there, and I saw the Battletech box, and at the time I'd been heavily involved in coaching football for about 6 or 7 years. I had just gotten out of it because it was too much of a time commitment. It was too competitive, and I get affected my school too much. It affected my relationships too much. And I finally just had to quit. I was burned out. And that lasted about 4 months. And then I was like, I need something to do. I'm going crazy here. Just and so I started looking at wargaming because it was something I'd always been interested in. But I had, I'm from south of the city, and I grew up in a pretty small area, and there wasn't really a big community for it when I was growing up. Like, in the middle of,
Right.
Near Millet there. It's not exactly a haven of wargaming. So I didn't really have anybody to play with. So at the time, it was between Warhammer Fantasy, which I love, and Battletech. Because as a child, I'd played when I was like 6 or 7, MechWarrior 2, the one where it was the refusal war between the Jade Falcons and the Wolves. And
Yes.
yeah, and that was my experience. My uncle, who was like, played Battletech, played RPGs, played video games, and lived near me, like let us play this game when I was, 6. My brother was 9, and like, oh my god, I'm piloting this giant mech, and it's the craziest thing ever, and like, it was the coolest thing to me when I was that age. And you had the joystick and everything, and it felt like you were piloting it. I think in the third mission of one of the campaigns, you're in this burning factory and a Nova comes out, and you've been piloting like a light mech the whole time, and like when this thing popped up on my targeting at like 12 ER mediums, it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life, right at 6. And so that was my introduction to Battletech. I got a couple of novels from the library and read them at the time, but then I just, I was 6, I moved on to other things. I didn't have any money to buy minis. I couldn't paint or anything like that. But 19 years later, when I was coming back, it was down to Warhammer Fantasy and Battletech. I liked them both. And that was right when GW decided that Warhammer Fantasy was going away.
Okay.
And Battletech, this is how I talked myself into it. I'm a poor college kid. I have no money. I'm like, okay, I only need to buy 4 mechs, right? I buy 4 mechs. I can play 1 lance. I can play that forever. I have behind me, if you add up the mechs, the vehicles, the battle armor, about 1,000 units. So that didn't
crazy.
work out. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a bad start. There's two or three guys locally that have me crushed. There's one guy who is actually my skirm partner.
Okay.
And he has, back when it was battle droids.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He has all of the original battle droids and 8 of the battle droids behemoths.
Oh, wow.
He has the Radical Fury Spider. He has every convention exclusive for like a 20-year period. Like, I've bought 200 mechs off him, and I've barely dented his collection.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. But, he's been in it again since, 1984 or whatever, since it was battle droids. So,
yeah, it's been around for a while, that's for sure. And it's funny, you telling your story there. Like when I played it with a bunch of high school friends. 2 brothers that introduced me to it. Funny enough, the older brother was named Steven as well. And it was between Warhammer 40K and Battletech. And I actually had given up Warhammer 40K for like 6 years and strictly just played Battletech. Right? My introduction was, you're part of a unit. It was kind of like a MechWarrior Battletech role, more MechWarrior role playing. And I was fighting for a position on a clan star with a certain mech, and luckily enough, I was able to jump into a Hunchback 2C, so which was still one of my favorites, right? But same kind of thing, right? Like, just didn't really have enough, too much money. Had enough money to buy minis, but it took me like 3 weeks to get it, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's pretty cool how it. Very similar to just getting into the game, right? And then eventually, the 2 friends kind of disappeared. They went into the military, and that was it.
Yep. Yeah.
So
it's a pretty common story that a lot of the guys who were coming back, a lot of the lapsed players, they had, they're 2 to 4 guys they played with for however long it was, from a year to 10 years, and then life happens, people move, jobs change, guys go away, and a lot of them just woke up one day and it had been 5 years since they played, 10 years
Exactly.
since they played.
It's
So
it's funny though, because like since the Kickstarter finally got delivered and stuff, and the new box set started coming out. As soon as I opened up the box set and like introduced it to Bill and a couple other buddies, I was like,
yeah,
I still remember how to do some of this stuff.
yeah,
Like you don't forget, right?
yeah,
And
and yeah, and one of the wonderful things about BattleTech is, you know, the rules have not really changed very much over the last 20, 30 years. They've evolved. Some things have been errated, some things have been kind of clarified. But I mean, you pick up the 2011 printing of Total Warfare as opposed to the 2022 printing of Total Warfare, and 85, 90% of it's the same.
Yeah.
And if you played in 1984 and you know what's on an Atlas D and you pick up an Atlas D, whatever it is, 35 years later, it's the same mech.
yeah, yeah, and it's funny because in ways a lot of people like that, and then of
Yeah.
course and depending on the game, and
Yeah.
in ways some people don't like that, like they want an update, they want a change, right?
Yeah.
I know we're going through that with like Horus Heresy kind of stuff right now, but
Mm-hmm.
it's two completely different type of games. So,
Yeah, very
um,
much so.
but it is a good feeling though, going back to starting to read the books again, like the rule books, and then realizing, oh yeah, ammo
Yeah.
explosions. Oh yeah, machine guns suck for that, right?
Yep. 200 rounds does 400 points. It'll take out your super heavy pretty much.
Pretty much, pretty much. But
Yeah,
just stuff
it's
like that, right? So,
yep. Yeah, and I mean, and for me, when I was getting into it, 2015 there was, I honestly can say, I think one of the, not the darkest periods, probably the wrong way to put it, but one of the quietest periods for BattleTech. Like, at the time I was, still pretty young and full of energy and had my new mechs, and I just wanted to play with somebody. And at the time, just trying to find a game was tough.
mhm.
I looked a couple places and couldn't really find anybody playing. I ended up going on the official forum, and kind of making a post and being like, "Hey, is anybody in Alberta playing?" And I ended up meeting a guy in Hinton.
Okay,
Um, and then another guy who answered was in St. Albert. Was in the process of moving there from Manitoba. Guy named Derek. He's a really good friend of mine now. We've been playing together for 7 years. But
nice.
the guy out in Hinton, JD, um, was the first guy I got to go play with. So I mean, I drove to Hinton, played a guy, stayed in his guest room overnight, played him again the next day, and that's how what I had to do to get a game in. And in the process, his wife's sister was dating a guy, and they were out there camping, who happened to drop by, who was a local player in Edmonton. So he played one of the days, and I talked with him, and I ended up getting invited to a game he was restarting that he had been running. And so that's how I got to play regularly with people. I had to go to Hinton to meet someone's brother-in-law essentially to get a game.
Just to try to connect. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
crazy.
And at the time, people were selling collections. So I mean, I was able to get minis, for $2 a mini, $5 a mini, because people were, oh, I haven't played in 10 years, I'm getting out of it. And
Yeah.
it was just a group of about six or seven of us that were playing. And then, as I kind of expanded and got to know people more, you'd find, like, you'd hear rumors. You'd hear like, I hear there's a cash game on the base on Tuesdays, but you got to know the password to get in, and this group broke off, but they only play Clan Invasion, these 4 mechs every second Sunday, so it was
Oh
so
wow.
weird because it was such a small community, but so insular. The groups played with each other. They didn't play with each other. They knew each other existed, and it was a weird situation. And then of course, gradually guys were coming in, and the video games helped. MechWarrior Online was a big influence, got a lot of people into it. I know when that game came out for me, it was like I'd only played MechWarrior 2. Who's House Davian? What's an Atlas? What where's my Timberwolf?
Influenced by the clans, were we?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't even know the IS existed because they're talking about the refusal
Yeah.
war in that game, and I had no idea who any of these people were. I remember I was on a bus to an Eskimos game with my brother who had backed it, and he was getting me into playing it, and we were like literally on Sarna looking up like, who are these people? Where is this? Like,
hmm
um, and then yeah, now with the Kickstarter, I mean, the active player base is, I would guess, quadrupled, if not more.
Yeah, like just from hearsay and whatnot, and seeing people show up at the shop and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, like it's like, where were all these guys before? Like, were they all just playing in their basement, or was there even communities? I'm not sure, but this is awesome. You
Yeah.
know,
No, it's great.
um,
Um,
and there must be like a huge influx of new players, though.
yeah.
Like not just older players finally getting together and taking that kind of secluded
Yeah.
team of players that they play with, but now people are kind of mingling and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird because like BattleTech seemed to be a bit of a hidden gem
Yeah.
for quite a while, and it's funny when I talk to these friends of mine who are like hardcore GW players. I'm like, you know what? GW has a lot of fluff and a lot of books and stuff, but I guarantee you BattleTech is right up there behind them. Like there's
Yeah.
so much material for BattleTech and the
Oh
universe.
yeah.
It's insane, and it's awesome going back to it now and starting to read some more of the novels that I never even knew existed, and just
Yeah.
catching up on stuff, like Aiden Pride and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then of course myself, like I grew up with the cartoon,
Yeah.
like, and I just love it. I still have the figures in my showcase, man. Like, I got
Yep.
almost all of them, right? Even the variants. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Those are awesome.
but it's interesting how just an influx of players and like even with like the multiple groups that we have, within our province here,
Yeah.
they all intertwine, and like
Yeah.
almost every few days, I'm getting a new person kind of asking to join in, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is cool, and it's nice to promote each other's groups and the events and stuff that's happening, which we'll obviously get to here shortly as well. But yeah, it's a good time to be a BattleTech player. That is for sure.
Yeah. And I'm always reminded of because of the how big the renewal's been of the line from LL Cool J. It's for us guys who've been playing for a long time. It's don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years. It's kind of the joke we always have about it.
It's pretty
But
good.
but yeah, but like it's really been great because I mean there's been guys I've played with in the last 6 months, last year that like yeah like it's their first game and they're just excited to play. And there's guys who there's one guy who I remember I ran an event in July, just an intro tech event, and there's one guy at the table just sitting there just laughing the whole time. And I went over and was talking with him, and it just tickled him that he played this game 25 years ago in his basement, and to see 16 guys at two tables playing BattleTech again, he thought it was just the coolest thing ever, right?
That's awesome.
And yeah, and it's been interesting, kind of intertwining the groups and everything there. I'm a Catalyst demo agent. I'm part of the Catalyst demo team.
That's right.
As of oh boy, the last 2 years have messed up my scale of time. Just before it was 2019 was when I applied for the demo team and got on. So just before, I think I ran 3 events in October of 2019. Then I got sick in January and I had pneumonia and I was out for a month. And my plan at the time had been to start up, I figured for the way Edmonton was structured at the time, I figured, something like a league was probably a good idea where it's pretty informal, but it's something that's regular and consistent. And I'll get people playing again. Of course, with everything that happened in 2020, that completely went out the window, and I never even got past the early planning stage there. And then last year down in Calgary, because they have a league down there that has its roots back to, I think, oh my gosh, 1999, 2000, something like that. That's gone through this is the 4th iteration of it. their Calgary Battletech League. It ran from I think about 2000 to 2005 under one guy. Then one of the guys who's running it now took over for a couple years. Then it was dormant for 5 years. Then one of my good friends, Bruce, who's the catalyst agent down there, one of them ran it for a couple years, and now Lee Toms and Brett Tukowski have brought it back. And I actually went down and played last year, so I made that trip 11 times.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was a ton of fun, and even just to see the differences in how the game's played 200, 250 kilometers apart, very different ideas of meta, very different ideas of what is good and what isn't good, and like a different style of play. And we're the two closest related communities in our province.
Yeah.
And yet it's completely different, right? And it was really fun to go down there and meet all those guys and make connections and get to play with them. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah, I noticed that they have their own little podcast as well.
They do. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they do. I've been on there twice. It's been fun.
Nice.
I got to do the winner interview because I did win the A side this year. So
nice.
Went down, stole their trophy and their lunch money. And, yeah, I'm gonna.
Awesome.
When I go back next time, when I go back for a practice game, there's gonna be hit out on me, but it's fine. It's fine. I don't. But no, great community, great group of guys, and I mean they've had so many new players that between their podcast and the league that have come in and just want to play BattleTech, man.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I'm I know with Industrial Park Games here, they've been, I think, probably the center for BattleTech for sure.
Yes.
And I know a couple other shops sell it, but not a whole bunch of other shops actually have games going on at their stores. Like myself, I'm kind of home base at Red Claw Gaming over here on the north side, but I haven't really seen too many people playing there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just, people either are already going to Industrial Park Games or if they're just not really that many players on this side of the city. I'm not sure, but
I think there's a decent amount on the north side because most of the guys that I was playing with the last 5 or 7 years, they're north side guys.
Are they?
Okay. Yeah, we actually played at Red Claw briefly in 2015 was our home store for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
But we were doing it Friday nights, and they I forget what they had, but they had something else.
Probably
that was
Magic.
basically taking. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was basically taking up their space. So we moved around. We were in a couple different places. A little game store that was right by Westmount, and then they moved to the north side. I forget the name of it now, but they folded. And then we were at Tabletop Cafe 2 downtown for like 2 or 3 years until the pandemic hit, and they went under. That location went under from that as well. But yeah, almost all the guys I play with are north side guys. I'm the only guy from the south part of the city, so that's why I've always been driving up there for stuff because everyone else is up there. Yeah, and with Industrial Park Games, I mean, they're great because I was phoning around when this Kickstarter stuff was coming in, just price checking and figuring out where I was going to get the stuff. I'd originally backed the Kickstarter, but I had a choice of either finishing my college degree and going to see my girlfriend at the time who didn't live here, or buying my Kickstarter. So I gave up my Kickstarter so I could finish my degree and go see my girlfriend, who's now my ex-girlfriend. So I chose wrong. That's why you never put that before BattleTech. But and yeah, so when I was phoning around, I ended up phoning and I was talking to Rob on the phone and just kind of asking about some of the products and everything. And he was just asking me some questions. And he mentioned that he's like, oh yeah, I used to play back in the day. And he said, yeah, there used to be vehicles and stuff like that. And I said, oh yeah, those are all on the Iron Wind line and everything. And I could hear him typing on the computer. Oh wow, yeah, those are cool and everything. And I'm talking to him and I was like, nobody up here is carrying that.
Yeah.
And he kind of was like, oh yeah, we'll look into it. But I'd heard other stores say, oh yeah, we'll look into it. And okay, nothing ever happened. And then a month later, I was in talking to him, and he's like, oh yeah, we're going to be distributing with them. I was like, yes, we've got another place carrying the actual mini line because, what are they called in St. Albert's? Mission had carried.
Yeah, they used to.
Had carried it, and then they stopped, and we actually the group I'm part of basically bought out their collection. And the Sentry box used to as well, but then their supplier changed, and there's something with their contracts that they can't get the medals in.
Hmm.
I don't claim to know it. The guys down there know it better than I do, but I think, to my knowledge, right now IPG is the only place carrying the Iron Wind line.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is why I know when I was looking at running stuff there, that's why I decided to run it out of IPG. They're all great guys,
Yeah,
but it's
makes
also
sense.
just, they're carrying all the product lines. So
Yeah, but it's good though. Like it's good that one of the stores has kind of championed the
yeah,
game itself, and then of course having somebody like yourself, being the Catalyst demo agent and longtime vet into the game, champion getting the community going and demos and little events, and then plus Jason now
yeah,
helping
yeah,
out in there, which is really good.
yeah,
I know he's been loving it. He's been on like this binge for BattleTech. Like we play MechWarrior online
yeah,
together all the time, right? And
yeah,
it's great. It's great. And yeah, it's just
yeah,
with all the new stuff coming out and new, the books and the nice new minis, and guys who like the old pure ones can still get them.
hmm
It's really taking flight for a game that's been around for a long time, but it's
yeah,
been kind of in the closet a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah,
just Battletech. What? Is that Robotech?
yeah,
No, it's Battletech. You know?
yeah, exactly. It was written off by a lot of people there and the company's had some there have been some tough periods for the predecessors to Catalyst games,
Yeah.
with FASA and WizKids and that. And it's an IP that just won't die. It's survived, what, three changes of the hands at this
It's
point.
gone through the dark ages.
Literally. And yeah, it's great to see it back. And I know for me, one of the big ideas behind the Edmonton Battletech League, which is a project I'm working on right now, and it's about to start its inaugural season. It was going back to that initial kind of that story I told here about when I started trying to play and just how hard it was to find a place and how difficult it was to get in. Like once I was in, the community were great guys, easy to play with, really fun. Some of my best friends are guys I met playing BattleTech.
Nice.
But that initial just difficulty that I was like, it shouldn't be this hard to get into a hobby that everybody loves. It shouldn't be this hard to have big stompy robots shoot other big stompy robots. And
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, I was talking with Bruce Ford, who's one of the Catalyst demo agents down there in Calgary. He did demos for me when I was learning, became a good personal friend, and I was down there visiting him, and we were playing a game in his basement, and I was just kind of ranting about this is we can't get any nobody talks to each other and this and that and sort of the local problems, and he kind of listened and nodded his head, and he was sort of just like, so what are you going to do about it? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you can complain about it, or you can do something about it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, yeah, you're right, Bruce, but you got to be so right. And I really just wanted to make, the public presence in Edmonton be a bigger thing. It's like, just find a place where people can come out, see people playing, learn the basics. And then, I mean, if they want to go back and just play, I'm only going to play Dark Age, Golden Keshik, Clan Wolf and Exile with my buddy, that's fine. That's cool. But it's that getting them so they know there's that bigger community. They get that experience with the rules. Because, I mean, the rules of Battletech are deceptively simple for how complex they are, is how I would put it. Once you're familiar with them, it's an easy game. But when you first start out, a lot of it doesn't kind of make logical sense, especially with newer game systems that are a little more streamlined, right?
Yes. It's it is a topic that's come up in conversation with a couple of friends, just comparing BattleTech to, again, Titanicus as an example.
Yeah.
And I've played both, and I love both. My heart is more on the BattleTech side, just because of that's where I was at, right? But yeah, just going through the rules with some of the buddies and like, having to look stuff up and this and that, and then it references other things. Some of the friends are like, there's so much to it. Like there's tons of stuff that you have to go back to, and then like there's charts and there's
Yeah.
just math problems pretty much is what the one guy said. Right. um, but there is a lot of detail to the game, but the one thing I keep telling the boys too is like, you know what, like, yes, there's a lot of source books, and yes, there's a lot of info and stuff like that, but the nice thing about Battletech is you can play with it, as much of it as you want, or as
Yeah.
basic of it as you
Yeah.
want, right?
Exactly. And there's such a good breadth of rules for it out there right now. You've got everything from Alpha Strike, which within itself, Alpha Strike, depending on how you're playing it, can be completely basic or reasonably complex. You've got Destiny and some of the Destiny variants you see out there, and then you've got Classic. And I know for me, the reason I'm a Classic player and the reason I love Classic so much is the character of the mechs. You know,
Yeah.
um, a Vindicator to a Hunchback is so different, even though they're 5 tons apart, right?
Yeah.
And every variant and every chassis can have its pros, it can have its cons. Sometimes the fun can be, I'm going to take this mech I know is terrible and just try and make it work, right? And other times you can find something that, there's an infamous story in our group from a campaign I was running where they were actually clan Darkcast in the Wars of Reaving. And they had actually come into the inner sphere as part of a raiding party, and they were in Korean space, and they're in a city fight, and they're fighting a bunch of Koreans, and there's a Kintaro right in front of the one guy, and he just stands, and he's in a city, and he's like, I'm not worried about it. Kintaros don't jump. Kintaro K is the only jumping variant of the Kintaro. That's what I happen to have. Jumped behind him, 2 6-racks, 2 streak sixes, opens his back up, detonates him, he ejects. And, for years, every time somebody's not familiar with the variants and people are kind of, what's the worst that can happen? We just look at each other, well, Kintaros don't jump. So,
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. And it's those finding those combinations. And I mean, now there's, what is there, 3,986 printed variants with BV of mechs or something like that, or without,
Yeah.
3,700 with. Like, there's so much out there you can do.
I know when I was getting back into it, like I was on that Catalyst site like you wouldn't believe, and
Yeah.
I was gobbling up all these mech sheets. Like I was just like, I'm gonna be the dude with all the sheets, like
Yeah.
going fanatical here. But it's great that they have access to it that easily, right? So, and of course, there's other sources for stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But,
And the tech, man, now it's, you've got Sarna, which they're updating again. For some of the older guys, you got the Heavy Metal Pro, which is a little out of date, but it does some things really well. You've got Mech Factory, which is a great app, and it's free. You can put it on your phone. Catalyst has out the companion app now for tablets and that. Like, so it's not the paper management it used to be either to go through, and you don't have to have 14 books or record sheets to find the one you want. You just type it in. There it is, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I even found one there. I just did a search, and it was I think it was Fletch, Flechs, and it's the same kind of thing as like what Catalyst is doing, except they have a whole database of all the mechs, and it's an interactive mech sheet, right?
Yeah. I played with a guy 2 weeks ago that was using, I think, that exact one.
So it was pretty. I found it, and it's like I was always having guys, do you have this sheet, or do you know where I can get this sheet, or do you know where I can find this, and go on master unit list kind of thing and search to see what book it's in. Okay, I got that book. Here's a PDF. Have at it, right? I'm like, well, you guys can use that program, and you can easily print it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, there's some amazing resources.
But that's pretty good. So yeah, kind of going back a little to your league that you're doing.
Yeah.
So your league is starting up towards the end of the month, I believe.
April 30th will be the kickoff week. That's correct.
Okay. So yeah, it's starting off. And how many players do you think you'll have for that? Do you think?
So we opened formal registration yesterday. So that's basically your name, your lance, your team name, that kind of stuff. Just really basic form. It's on the group. But kind of just done to see like, well, are we going to have enough? Is it going to be worth doing? I'd done like a just kind of expression of interest type thing, and I think it was at 18 players.
Oh wow.
Last I checked. Yeah. And that's without a couple. There's 2 or 3 guys that had been very active because I had I have a Facebook group open and we'd done some polls and kind of because at the end of the day,
Right.
while I could have made every single decision for how the league was going to work and that it was better to, in my mind, to let everyone have that feedback and have their voices heard and how we kind of set things up. And some of the guys who were super active in that and commented on everything and voted in every poll, I haven't heard from them yet. And I'm going to reach out to them in the next week or two, but it's a situation where it's like, there's always a couple of guys. I mean, I'm sure you know this from organizing tournaments. There's always a couple of guys that are in, and then the day of, you can't find them. They're on a milk carton somewhere,
Yeah.
But I'm guessing final walk-away number will be 14 to 20.
That's a pretty good number. That is a pretty good number.
16 is ideal for scheduling, so.
I just had a bolt action event last month, and I had 12 players, and then I was able to snag a 13th onlooker who was interested, and I got him to take my spot, and kind of hands-on training right there and then.
Nice.
So yeah, that many people, that's pretty good compared to, not comparing it to 40K, of course, but comparing it to other games like Horus Heresy and Bolt Action and some of the other games out there. That's a bit of a better number than even those other systems. So that's a good thing. And it's one of those games where it doesn't take very much to get into. So
yeah, and for a league you're going to need a lance. So
yeah, exactly. And again, like you said, it's definitely welcoming new players to come in to play, to learn the game, to have fun. Of course, that's the main goal. And then also, obviously, veteran players to be active and playing as well and having fun and showing some of the young pups the ropes kind of thing, right? And
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's a really good start for the game that's coming out with a bang.
Yeah. I mean, of the 18 guys who've expressed interest to me, because I'm not playing, I'm just admitting.
Okay.
So that number's not including me, and that's just for a bunch of reasons, just so that I can keep it as fair and impartial, and I'm not, I don't have any skin in the game, so
kind of TOing kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. But of the 18 guys who've expressed interest, 4 of them are what I would call veteran players. Like, they're guys I've known for 5 to 7 years. And they've got, 200 plus games in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So they're veteran players. They're good players. And then the other 14 are 20 games or less in the last 5 years. So they're all guys who are lapsed players, new players. Like, it's a very new group. It's a very, I wanted to go for a format. I wanted it to be as accessible to new players as possible. So we stayed away from the later era tech and some of the more complicated rules and skill things you can do, just because I wanted to play as close to just book Battletech as we could do.
Yeah.
So you could buy the Battle Mech manual or get the quick start rules, and you wouldn't be behind the curve. It wouldn't be, oh, well, you don't have tournament operations and tactical operations and pseudo tech, and you need this thing to get this thing to play. And the vast majority of the Intratech mechs, they're in the new plastics that have just come out. So guys aren't playing at even a mech disadvantage for what they can get, right? So
yeah,
and I really wanted to make it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the nice thing about those new plastic kits is, I found that a lot of the mech sheets are right on the site, like as a PDF. You can download. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can go from there, right? So, but go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and talking about kind of leagues that are in the province and everything, like Calgary, they run a very good league. I had a ton of fun playing in Calgary, but that is like as an experience, that is a very it's a competitive. I'd say it's a competitive and community experience on equal levels. Like it's it's about building their community and about getting guys playing BattleTech. But I mean, it's a $60 entry fee. It's a significant investment. Um, and like, the guys down there a lot of them are playing for fun, but there are guys down there who are 100% playing to win, right?
Hardcore, yeah.
Yeah, they were great. I mean, like the first few weeks, especially, there were so many veterans against new guy matches where the veterans would slow down and explain things and take their time and really help the new guys. But I mean, it was a fairly competitive experience, which was a good thing. It was one of the reasons I went down to play. I personally had played the same 6 or 7 guys for 7 years. You kind of know where you fit in that hierarchy, but you don't know how good you are in the grand scheme of the world, right? Like you could be playing the 6 best guys in the world, or you could be playing 6 guys that they can't count to potatoes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and for league up here, because I knew we were going to have a less experienced community overall, I really wanted it to be, this is a community focused organization, and we're keeping score because you that way it's more fun for everyone, right? But everyone's got to have a chance. Everybody makes playoffs. Everybody has the chance to play spoiler and take home the big trophy at the end of the year. So
That's pretty
it's gonna be a great time.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Nice. So, I'm going to have to spread the word a bit more amongst some of the other guys here for sure.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool with the event and whatnot, and that kicking off here soon. Another section I'd like to touch on because I'm not too familiar with it myself, but like other events and like tournaments, is like North America, is there a lot that go on, or is it more European? Is it like
it's kind of a mix. I mean, the last 2 years have been the last 2 years, obviously. So
Yes.
it's been I'm trying to think of North American ones. I know there's one that they're holding in, I think it's Vancouver or a suburb in the fall.
okay?
I'd have to look up the details. I just saw stuff about it last week. It was announced.
But they do have tourneys like consistent.
There's stuff at Gen Con. There's some really huge ones in Europe, in Germany and that. But no, like the tournament scene has at least locally been it's been many a year since there was just a tournament in Edmonton. It's something that, and kind of part of the idea of League, to be honest, is to run that season and then to run an off season. And in the off season, once a month, once every 2 months, have some stuff. So to kind of get into, not to get too into it, but there's going to be a couple themed tournaments I'm working on. So there'll be some Solaris stuff. There'll be a few other things like that. That'll be more of a, let's play in one day, get 2-3 games in and, either build them to another tournament later or have a result there. And then the other thing that I kind of wanted to build into League in the off season is to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but there's a really simplified campaign system that has been produced and is Catalyst. They didn't do it themselves, but people have done it and they kind of recommend. One of the things they kind of recommend, but it's essentially a drop-in campaign.
Okay.
And so it's like, I've got the rules and everything for it, but it's basically like a Succession Wars era is the one that they recommend. All you can do whenever, but you start off with a set pilot, set C-bills to buy a mech, like basic piloting upgrades, and like a little kind of like a mini SPA you can take, and then every scenario you show up to, you earn a certain amount of money. You get more if you win. You get more if you don't get destroyed. But even if you get destroyed and your mech gets blown up, you're not dead. You can come back the next time the campaign's run. You just make a little bit less money. Anything you destroy actually is, without like coring out, goes on the salvage list. And then anytime you want to buy a new mech, you can look at anything on those lists as sort of like your salvage. And it's just like a really informal kind of drop in. You miss a session, you don't really miss much kind of style of campaign. And something like that is something I'd love to do kind of once a month for the people who can't make, every Friday or every Thursday work, and then they can still show up and play, right?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was actually just asking some of the boys too, like how they felt about doing kind of a unit based, almost not so much role playing, but more of kind of like unit based campaign where you guys are in this unit and you'll be fighting against myself, which be the dungeon
Yeah.
master kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
and throw a whole bunch of that kind of stuff in there, just
Yeah.
having guys having a little bit, having, I guess it would be for me, it would be to share what I experienced my first time around
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
Battletech,
'Cause it's
right?
very, very similar to what you were talking about there for your first kind of campaign. And yeah, that would be cool. That'd be super cool. I know for me, the first campaign I got to play in was actually SLDF Liberation of Terra.
Okay,
And
that's a big one.
that was fun. And that one had been running on and off for actually a couple of years before I joined. So I joined the second mission they were on Terra. The first one was they hot dropped and got ambushed as they came in, and like 2/3 of the lands got wiped. So the first mission I did was going to the prisoner of war camp to get them out.
Nice.
and I learned some lessons that day because we basically got to pick a lance, a light, medium, heavy assault of our choice, and then we basically would kind of meet the operational requirements for the mission. So for the liberation of the concentration camp, I had taken a devastator, and we ran into like terrible luck. Like first two shots of the game, one guy got hipped, another guy got gyroed on floaters.
Ouch.
And so our flanking force got slowed, and me and one other guy ended up just in front of the gates of this fortress getting hammered. And the Devastator went down on the last shot of the game to a jackrabbit at its AC2. And I decided it for myself at that point in time. I was like, okay, that was a fun mech, but I couldn't really get away from people. I couldn't really protect myself. I needed my lance mates to protect me. I'm going to gravitate more towards things that are a little faster and learn the game where if I get in trouble, I can run away.
Fair enough.
So
yeah,
no, and I like tournaments. I like leagues and tournament formats, but I mean, my heart of hearts, I adore campaigns. To me, that's where Battletech really shines, is where you're following a story, and like you can do anything in the Battletech universe, like depending on how much interest you have in the lore and everything. I mean, I've seen people run everything from television shows that are set in the Battletech universe. They're a Comstar Entertainment production where we've got budgets and set pieces, and like, we get, instead of getting edge or something, we have cuts where we cut the action if something we don't like happens, but cut too much, you get fired, kind of a thing.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah. Oh, it's completely different because you got to play for action and play in your character, to build your own personal basically following, to stuff where we've done SLDF Liberation of Terra. We've done I've actually ran, before they published the material they've got now for Ill Clan, I did a late Dark Age Word of Blake Remnants campaign where they were actually hunting down and going after elite units that had, been instrumental in stopping the Word of Blake and the Jihad as a sleeper cell. And that was a mix of a time of war and tabletop. So, every third session was out of mech, in close, infiltration, and that game was a ton of fun.
Oh, no doubt.
So
that's the beauty of it. There's so much you can do.
Yeah.
Right. And like, even if you just did this is like, your first campaign, you're kind of keeping it basic, but you're putting in some time and some effort to come up with a cool little storyline. Maybe it's you're playing as clans and you're fighting for your right to be a mech warrior kind of thing, or that kind of thing.
Trial of Position is awesome.
And that's the kind of thing I'd love to share with a couple of the close friends, is that whole experience. And like you've earlier, it's kind of like been said that a lot of times Battletech sometimes is kind of like you're putting in a session, right?
Yeah.
So, be it a campaign or being a role-playing thing or just having a skirmish, the game is a little bit longer, it can be, but
Yeah.
I mean, the more you play it, obviously the quicker you start getting at things. But I found with the guys, myself, my little group there, we'd kind of play it like maybe once a month, and yeah, like it's the last time I did a little gathering was I had ended up making some custom missions,
Yeah.
and you know, both games are pretty fun. People had a good time with it. There was one where you had to escort a recovery crew to an old facility, a Star League facility that had a mech in it, and I had 3D printed a mech bay and put in a Black Knight kind of thing in there, right?
Nice. Yeah.
And then the other one was a little of the story behind that was it was kind of a recon job where both sides had come across blips of possible enemies, and they were in a storm, and
Yeah.
they had to drop these little beacons in each other's uh, edge of the board, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it ended up, you had to close in to this battle, right? You had to get in there. So just little
Yeah.
things like that. And it was another question that was kind of popped in my head too, because I've been 3D printing tons of terrain for
Mm-hmm.
for BattleTech, from hills to buildings
Yeah.
to industrial. And I know when I was playing there, when Jason first popped off at IPG there,
Yeah.
had the 3D hills and stuff. Do you guys play with a lot of 3D stuff, or is it mainly just the play mats and the map sheets you guys play with, or is
Um,
there complication? Is there what's the big difference, or um, anything that has to change with that? You know what I mean?
so I'm trying to answer this question without throwing anyone under the bus, and they'll know who they are. Um, because I've been trying to get two of my buddies to get me a full 3D set, make me a full 3D set of terrain for about 3 or 4 years, because I'd say we primarily do use the map sheets and the rollout maps. 3D terrain, the game plays really well with 3D terrain. If you get the hexes at 1.5 or 1.25 inch hexes, like Battletech's normally 1.25. I find 1.5 is nice because then you can put trees up around them and stuff,
Right.
and the mechs kind of sit in the hex. My skirm partner, who I mentioned earlier, we played when him and I played, it's almost exclusively on 3D because he's got a really nice set in his house that he made, and his is like 2 inch, which is a little too big, but it's really fun on 3D terrain. There are really no complications. If you play with hexes underlying, you don't have to convert anything. And for you guys who are familiar with measuring, converting it into inches, if you do want to play with no hexes, isn't a big deal.
Right.
Because you're so used to doing it from other games, right?
Yeah. No, for sure.
But it works really well, and it's the biggest advantage is just how scenic it is.
Yes. Yes. Believe me,
It's beautiful.
I've set up a few of my map sheets and
Yeah.
kind of design what had a picture in my head, and it's like, okay, I got tons of city buildings for Trinity City or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Got some roads, throw the roads, put the trees, put the buildings. It's like, that looks pretty cool. Now I need to paint it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then I think I went like hog wild for maybe 4 months of just continuous printing, from like different types of hills to buildings to industrial
Yeah.
complexes to like I even have like partially city walls, like
Nice.
fortifications, and like they're pretty big.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing with 3D terrain is you can truly create those like one of a kind maps. Like
Yeah.
I think probably what I would do if I was finding my, if I was, well, I mean, I will be again this year. Once League's up and running, I'll be running my own campaign again on Fridays. But I think the ideal mix for me personally would be for sort of the more, I don't want to call them generic missions, but the more standard things,
Yeah.
just throwing out a couple map sheets is good. But for any of those big set piece that you really want to be memorable, you stick a big, the Kickstarter mini dropship painted up in there with actual 3D terrain and buildings, and it's like, you're playing in the bigs then, right? It like people look at that and they just go, "What is that?" Right? And I want to play that. I know for the events I ran in October of 2019, I borrowed my buddy's 3D terrain, and we were actually playing at, what's it called? It's one of the local
Onslaught?
RPG
No.
conventions. No, not Onslaught. I didn't make Onslaught. I had something that week, but it was right around the same time as Onslaught. It's gonna bug me that I can't remember the name of them. I've been there 3 years, but is it Origin Con? Yeah, I think it's like Origin Con or something. But it's an RPG convention, and you know, every single guy in there was like, "What is this? This looks so cool with the 3D terrain and the big mechs and all painted." And they're
Nice.
like, "I want to play this," right? So it's a great game, and it's so nice because it's so scalable too. Like you can play 1-on-1 depending on the opponents and your experience level. Like you can play a lance on lance in 3-4 hours. If you're pretty new.
Yeah.
If you're a veteran, or you play fast, you can play a company and a company in 4 to 5 hours. Classic rules.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And then the other thing is because of how the op forces scale and everything, like you can play it like like D&D. You can play your GM against 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, and then if you have guys drop in, if you got a big 12 unit op force and 15 unit op force, you just divide here. Take these 2 units. Here, take these 2 units. Right.
Yeah.
It's a great game for playing with drop-ins or a set group, and it's just so you can do anything with Battletech, man. You can play whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. You want to just play primitives, Age of War, you can do it. You want to play the latest and greatest from the Ill Clan, you can do it, right?
Nice. That's so true, and yeah, it's very cool. It's reassures me of my love for the universe and the game and just everything that they have out for it. Like
Yeah.
so it's a classic, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is.
And I'm glad it survived the hardships, and I'm very very happy that it's made a big comeback and has a really good presence here in the city.
Yep.
And then knowing that Calgary also, our sister city, has a good following down there too, which gives me hope and whatnot that wow, things could actually be really really good, and
Yeah.
they are really good is what I should say.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
good. It's good to hear.
Yeah,
Definitely.
they had, I think, 18 for their first season. Will be right around there. Um, you know, the joke has been for 5 years, 7 years, we've been talking about doing some sort of cross event, and it we may actually have the people now to do it once everything kind of clears up here. Although I was teasing the guys down there that when we need to do the first provincial championship, because the Edmonton champ will be from Edmonton unless somebody from out of city registers, and I'm the Calgary champ, we can just play it in somebody's basement on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
There's the provincial title.
There you go. There you have it.
So,
There you have it.
but
Nice. Well, one last question for you.
sure.
Inner Sphere clan.
Okay, this is a tough one. Because, and I'll explain why. Because when I started, I was absolutely only understood the clans, only knew about the clans. Like I mentioned, what's an Atlas? Who's Hans Davian, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, now that I'm super into it, I gotta go IS.
Nice.
But it is close. Like I guess it's probably more accurate to say I've got a list of favorite factions. My favorite is the Word of Blake, and that comes from being an agent, running the games. it's fun to play the bad guys. And
Very
it's
nice.
and the nice thing with the Word of Blake is, as opposed to the other BattleTech bad guys for the most part, is the other bad guys in BattleTech, like, you know, the clans. When the clans invaded, they were the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, in 3025, the Cretans were the bad guys, realistically, and the Capellans. But as people like them, they kind of, you know, oh, the Cretans went from being evil to, well, you know, here's all the nuance of Cretan culture, and here's a more moderate coordinator, and the clans, oh, well, you know, Clan Wolf's pretty cool, and these guys are cool, and here's all the good guy clans. The Word of Blake are just the bad guys. They're not redeemed. They don't ever become cool. They're just the bad guys. And that's what I enjoy about them. And, you know, when you can drop nukes on people in a campaign and they can watch their unit get burned to ash by a nuclear device, you can leave a good lasting impression on them and really make them hate the guys they're fighting, right?
Oh, no doubt.
So
No doubt. I know Jason is already. I hate
I'm
those
converting
guys.
him. I'm converting him. He's already talking to Phil about, like, oh man, I could get all those omnis, and yeah. See, that's the problem. You're around me too long, and all of a sudden you'll start to understand the Word of Blake, and then they're just misunderstood, and then you look behind you and you have 36 Celestials, and you're just like, where'd they come from?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So,
Well, again, thank you for joining me. Actually, this is really, really fun. Good time, good info.
yeah.
It's finally good to actually sit down and kind of talk a little bit too, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully you'll see my face a bit more at the shop there. I think I'm gonna try to come down on the Fridays, and
That'd be awesome.
might even check out the Thursdays and see how your little campaign is going there as well. Actually,
Yeah. No, I mean, that would be, anytime you can make it down would be great. I know we'll see about this week. Like I mentioned before we went on the air, just got some family stuff I'm taking care of, but they're about to wrap up sort of a second little mini arc for their Cretans right now in 3045, just prior to clan invasion. 7th Pesh regulars way out on the edge of the inner sphere dealing with pirates. And once this has been wrapped up, the second one, I've actually got to poll the players and see. We might be moving to more of a time of war bent. We might be staying pretty standard, total warfare rules. We'll see. It's going to be fun. But
nice.
yeah, no, it'd be great to have you guys out anytime. I mean, we're, Fridays and Thursdays are open for drop-ins. Anyone who wants to show up and play can show up and play. So
nice. There you go. So yeah. So again, thank you for joining me on the session, and anybody who's interested, please check out the Edmonton Battletech League. There's also the other two pages. We have the Edmonton Battletech No Guts No Galaxy, and we also have, what is it, the Alberta Battletech?
Northern Alberta Battletech chapter, something like that. Yeah,
there you go.
Northern Alberta. Yeah. Thanks. Actually, thank you so much for having me on. As you can probably tell, anytime I get the chance to talk about Battletech, you can't get me to shut up. I enjoy it so much, and it's been great to be on. And you did my cheap plug for me, so I didn't even have to do my own cheap plug. So.
Hey, gotta promote the communities, man. That's what it's all about, right?
I can tell you're working with pros when they just work that in,
Perfect. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. As always, check out our Facebook page, Trident Wargaming, Instagram. Check that out as well. Obviously, you're watching this on YouTube or listening on whatever podcasting device. And look out for a couple of probably Battletech projects coming out in the future here. I know I got to finish off some Merrick forces, and then I got to jump back on my Clan Wolf and Steiner forces to finish those guys off. So, and then we'll see what happens next. But again, thanks guys for joining us, and we will catch you guys next time.
Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.